Have you ever noticed how Gen Z seems both incredibly aware and quietly overwhelmed? They speak openly about mental health, they question traditions, they crave authenticity, yet often feel the weight of constant comparison. Some call them sensitive, others call them resilient. But to truly understand Gen Z, we have to look deeper beyond stereotypes into the psychological environment that shaped them. This is the psychology of a generation that grew up in a world that never lets off. Gen Z didn't just grow up with technology, they grew up inside it. From an early age, their social experiences were shaped by platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where identity is not only expressed but constantly observed. Every post can be seen, every opinion can be challenged, every moment can be compared. Psychologically, this creates a heightened sense of self-awareness, an ongoing awareness of how one is perceived. For some, this builds confidence. For others, it quietly feeds self-doubt because when your life unfolds in front of an invisible audience, the line between authenticity and performance can blur. One of the Gen Z's defining traits is their emotional vocabulary. They talk about anxiety, burnout, boundaries, and healing with a fluency that previous generations often lacked. This isn't accidental. They grew up in an era where mental health conversations became public through online communities, educational content, and shared stories. As a result, many Gen Z individuals learned early that emotions are not something to suppress, but something to understand. They are more likely to ask, "What am I feeling? Why do I feel this way? What do I need?" This self-reflection can lead to emotional growth, but it can also bring emotional intensity because awareness doesn't just eliminate strengths, it also reveals vulnerabilities. Imagine growing up with a constant stream of global news, social issues, cultural debates, all accessible within seconds. Gen Z witnessed climate concerns, economic uncertainty, social movements, and global crises in real time. This creates what psychologists sometimes described as background stress, a subtle sense that the world is unpredictable. As a result, many Gen Z individuals develop a strong sense of social awareness and empathy. They care deeply about fairness, inclusion, and impact. But caring deeply can also mean carrying emotional weight. Gen Z is the most connected generation in history, yet loneliness remains a common experience. Digital communication makes interaction easy, but meaningful connection still requires vulnerability and presence. Scrolling through updates can create the illusion of closeness without fully meeting the human need to feel truly seen. This paradox, being constantly connected yet emotionally distant, shapes how many Gen Z individuals experience relationships. They often seek depth, honesty, and emotional safety. Unlike generations that often prioritize image, Gen Z tends to value authenticity. They are drawn to honesty even when it's messy or imperfect. Polished personas can feel distant or artificial. This shift reflects a psychological desire for realness in a world that often feels curated. For many, success is no longer defined solely by status or material achievement. It includes well-being, purpose, and alignment with personal values. Gen Z is known for setting boundaries, whether in friendships, family dynamics, or work environments. They are more likely to step away from situations that feel emotionally draining. To some observers, this can appear as avoidance, but psychologically, it often reflects a desire to protect mental health. They grew up hearing messages about self-care and emotional safety, and many take those messages seriously. Another defining experience for Gen Z is the abundance of choice. Career paths are less linear. Lifestyles are more flexible. Opportunities are global. While this freedom is empowering, it can also create pressure. When there are endless options, choosing a path can feel overwhelming. Questions like, "What should I do with my life?" can carry intense emotional weight. This is sometimes accompanied by fear of making the wrong decision or failing behind. Despite challenges, Gen Z shows remarkable adaptability. They navigate rapid technological change, shifting social norms, and uncertain futures. And they develop strong coping skills, learning to seek support, reflect inward, adapt outward. Their resilience is often subtle, not always loud or dramatic, but steady. It shows in their willingness to keep trying even when answers aren't clear. Perhaps more than anything, Gen Z is driven by a search for meaning. They don't just ask what works, they ask what matters. They are more likely to question systems, challenge expectations, and redefine success on their own terms. This reflects a psychological shift towards intentional living, choosing paths that feel aligned rather than simply accepted. Imagine growing up knowing that the world is complex, that change is constant, that your voice can reach far, yet comparison is always nearby. This is the emotional landscape Gen Z navigates daily. They are not simply sensitive, they are responding to a world that demands awareness. Gen Z represents a turning point, a generation that speaks openly about emotions, that questions old narratives, values authenticity over appearances. They carry both hope and pressure, optimism about change, and awareness of challenges. Understanding Gen Z is not just about understanding young people. It's about understanding the direction in which culture itself is evolving. To listen closely, we may see that their questions are not signs of uncertainty. They are signs of curiosity. Their boundaries are not walls. They are acts of care. And their awareness is not weakness. It is preparation for a complex world. There is a quiet pressure that many Gen Z individuals carry, one that isn't always visible from the outside. It is the pressure to be aware, to stay informed, have an opinion, to keep up. In a world where information moves at incredible speed, silence can sometimes feel like falling behind. This constant exposure creates a subtle tension, a sense that there is always something more to understand, respond to, or improve. Over time, this can lead to mental fatigue, not because they are weak, but because their environment rarely pauses. For many in Gen Z, childhood and adolescence folded with cameras always nearby. Moments that once would have been private are now documented, shared, and sometimes judged. Psychologically, this can shape how they relate to vulnerability. Some become more cautious about what they reveal. Others become more expressive, finding empowerment in sharing their stories. But nearly all develop an awareness of being seen. This awareness influences confidence, self-image, and social behavior in ways previous generations rarely experienced. Human beings naturally seek connection and affirmation, but when validation becomes quantifiable, measured in likes, views, and comments, it can subtly shape self-worth. Gen Z individuals learn to navigate this carefully. They may crave recognition while also questioning its authenticity. This creates an internal dialogue. Do people like me, or do they like what I present? Learning to separate external feedback from internal value becomes an important psychological task. Scrolling exposes Gen Z not just to friends, but to millions of lives, achievements, and lifestyles. This can inspire ambition, but it can also create unrealistic standards. Seeing curated highlights repeatedly can lead to the belief that everyone else is progressing faster, living better, or feeling more fulfilled. Even when intellectually they understand that social media shows only fragments, emotionally the comparison can still linger. This dynamic can contribute to anxiety and self-doubt, especially during periods of transition. Unlike traditional narratives that emphasize stability above all, many Gen Z individuals redefine success in more personal terms. They may prioritize flexibility, mental health, meaningful work, and balance. They are less likely to accept environments that feel misaligned with their values. This shift reflects a deeper psychological change, moving from survival-based thinking towards fulfillment-based thinking. But forging new definitions can feel uncertain, especially without clear roadmaps. Gen Z navigates relationships across both physical and digital spaces. They are skilled at maintaining context, sending messages, reacting to updates, staying connected across distances. Yet many still long for deeper emotional connection. They often seek relationships where communication is open, boundaries are respected, and emotional honesty is encouraged. At the same time, fear of misunderstanding or rejection can make vulnerability feel risky. This balance between openness and caution is how they approach intimacy and trust. Gen Z entered adulthood during periods of rapid global change, economic shifts, technological disruption, and evolving social expectations. As a result, many become comfortable with uncertainty earlier in life. They learn to adapt, pivot, and reconsider plans. While this builds flexibility, it can also create a persistent sense of unpredictability, as if stability is always temporary. Living with this awareness requires emotional resilience. A notable strength of Gen Z is their willingness to reflect. They are more likely to question patterns, examine habits, and explore personal growth. Many engage with ideas about mindfulness, therapy, and self-awareness. This inward focus can foster emotional maturity, an ability to recognize triggers, articulate needs, seek healthier ways of coping. However, deep reflection can sometimes turn into overthinking. Learning when to analyze and when to simply experience becomes an ongoing process. Gen Z often shows openness to diverse identities, perspectives, and lifestyles. They tend to challenge rigid categories and embrace complexity. It reflects a broader psychological orientation toward inclusivity, recognizing that human experience is multifaceted. For many, authenticity means allowing themselves and others to exist beyond narrow definitions. Despite narratives that focus on anxiety or stress, there is also profound hope within Gen Z, bring creativity, empathy, and a willingness to innovate. They imagine new ways of working, connecting, and living. Their questions, sometimes seen as disruptive, can also be seeds of progress, because questioning is often the first step towards transformation. If you look closely, you might see that Gen Z is learning to navigate a world that is both expansive and demanding. They are learning how to stay grounded in an environment that constantly shifts. They are learning how to care themselves, for others, and for the future without becoming overwhelmed. And like every generation before them, they are figuring it out as they go. To understand Gen Z fully, we must recognize both their challenges and their strengths. Their sensitivity is not fragility. Their awareness is not weakness. It is adaptation, adjustment to a world that asks them to think deeply, feel deeply, and respond thoughtfully. This conversation help you see Gen Z, or even yourself, in a deeper way. Take a moment to stay connected. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future explorations into psychology, human behavior, and the stories that shape how we think and feel. Your support helps keep these meaningful conversations going. And if there's someone who might need to hear this, share it with them. Never know how one insight can make a difference. Thank you for being here. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and keep growing.